Hi, everybody, and welcome to a new edition of Newsmakers TV. I'm Jerry Roberts. It is Thursday, January 18th. We're going a little early this week, but I'm delighted to reconvene our all-star panel of top local journalists. Joining us today, Janene Scully, North County editor for Noozhawk, Ryan P. Cruz, staff writer for The Independent, and Josh Molina, man of many hats, including the popular and ever-growing podcast, Santa Barbara Talks. Yeah, I think ever since you had me on there, your numbers have spiked, Josh, actually.
Definitely. Yes.
Yeah.
I need to get you back on.
Hey, Janene, let me start with you. You've been covering all of the Starlink shots, rockets going up into space, and it just seems like, boy, there's a lot of them. I mean, is that just my imagination, or is it sort of increasing exponentially? How many of those satellites are going up?
It's not your imagination. They actually are increasing the number of launches. Starlink is envisioned to have 30.
Uh-oh. You there?
So basically,
There we go.
can you hear me?
Yeah, you just cut out there for a minute. Go ahead.
Yeah, I've been having internet problems. So
I blame Cox, but anyway.
except I'm Frontier. But so I switched to my hotspot just because I thought it would be more stable. So
Yeah,
anyway,
we can hear you great now. Go ahead.
Starlink is basically, ironically, to provide internet access in remote and areas and in areas where it's not where internet service is not reliable, such as apparently Santa Maria, but also I know there's people up in the San Ynez Mountains who are using it. Anyway, so they're expecting 30,000 satellites, which means that they need lots of launches to get those satellites up. These days, they're flying about 22 to 23 satellites per mission. And it's added to the manifest. And last year, I think they were close to 30 for Falcon alone, and Starlink. They also have a number of other missions. They're expecting 50 Falcon launches for SpaceX this year. That obviously is Starlink and other payloads. And then, of course, there's a number of other customers and commercial customers that are launching and hoping to enter this market and add to the number of launches.
Yeah.
So it's not expected to slow down anytime soon.
Yeah, I'm old enough to remember when they canceled seventh grade gym class so we could all watch Alan Shepard go into orbit in 1960. So, this is all kind of weird to me. But I mean, it is interesting, the transformation, because it used to be the government or governments, the Soviet Union, the former Soviet Union, and the Defense Department. I mean, it was so expensive. But now Elon Musk and apparently Bezos as well, have figured out how to recycle, I mean, a lot of this stuff, correct? I mean, how does that work?
Yeah, so one of the most expensive components on a rocket is the first stage booster, and SpaceX has figured out how to recycle those missions, which cuts the time between launches and also cuts cost and allows them to keep up this pace that, years ago would have been unthinkable, but is matter of fact these days. I think overall SpaceX is hoping to get close to 150 launches between California and Florida in 2024, which
Wow.
is just amazing. In his recent all hands meeting, he said that SpaceX carried 80% of the mass to orbit across of all the launch providers, including in the US and international providers in last year. So 80% of the mass to orbit. And this year he expects that number to go closer above 90. So they've got a pretty solid hold on the market.
And so basically what they're doing, my degree in astrophysics was a while back, but I mean, basically these are like mega constellations of satellites essentially that are used almost altogether for communications, right?
Yeah, that's what Starlink is doing. There's also OneWeb, which was an international company. They launched some satellites from Vandenberg last year, ironically on a SpaceX rocket. Project Kuiper, I believe is how it's pronounced, is a Amazon project that's also going to do something similar, and they're going to start launching both on SpaceX. I think they're also launching on SpaceX, but they're also launching on the Vulcan rocket, which is the United Launch Alliance rocket. And then they're not going to slow down anytime soon. And of
Yeah.
course, those of us that have been around a while remember the, you know, in the late 90s, they were launching, Motorola came up with this idea of launching the Iridium satellites, which was new and seemed amazing that they were going to launch one a month, or one mission a month. And now they're doing basically one a week. So it's pretty amazing to see the evolution.
Yeah. And that I've been reading, we were talking about this a little before the show. The New York Times has been doing a series on this and a couple of issues, about there's some concern about there being so many satellites that there would be collisions, and also, the pollution question is a sort of open-ended thing. But I'm sure Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos are so concerned about the rest of us that probably wouldn't be a huge problem. I remember, you remember, Josh, our old friend Nora Wallace, who covered North County for the morning paper back in the day. She's a complete space nerd, and she used to go out at 3 o'clock in the morning or whenever to see every one of these. But I can't imagine you could do that, Janene. There's just too many of them going on now.
Yeah, it's a pretty intense pace to just tracking them remotely is it's pretty amazing trying to keep up with all of them. It looks like they have 3 shifts of workers at the base handling for SpaceX, at least, handling these missions. Back to the pollution and all of that, there are concerns that have been aired by the astronomers that these satellites are blocking their access to see the natural, to do their business. And so they've worked with SpaceX to try to reduce the lights on the satellites so that they are not interfering with the work that the astronomers are trying to do and get their pictures and get their images and continue their work. So it's kind of led to a bit of a collaboration. I'm not sure that the astronomers are too pleased yet, but it's yet another issue of, that there is a side effect to this effort to get.
But I guess on the economics of it is, it's a win-win for the county. I mean, these are civilian jobs, correct? These are not military people who are doing this
No,
work.
these are mostly civilian jobs. There's still some military, some Air Force, some Space Force involved, but yeah, they're military jobs and well-paying jobs. These are not well, I won't say that. These are not journalism jobs. We'll say that. These are high paid. I know. These are well-paying jobs that,
real
head of house.
jobs. Hey, Janene, let me just ask you
Yeah.
real quick. Where are you on the whole UFO thing? Real or not real? Hidden? They're keeping it all from us, or what? What do you think?
Probably semi-real, semi-exaggeration. There's probably a kernel of truth and a whole lot of imagination. I'm skeptical of the people that were saying that they saw something over Vandenberg, because I know
with
that
little box of light or rectangle or whatever.
Football field size.
those of us who were covering the base at the time never heard anything. I checked with Nora, as speaking of her, and I'm like, do you recall ever? And none of us heard anything, and it just seems highly unusual because people talk, and no matter how much things were classified on the base, you would still go to the gas station and have some somebody tell you that there's a launch
Right.
coming up, even though it was supposed to be top secret. So I just don't, I'm just skeptical, but I believe we're not the only ones out there. There's probably others.
Well,
Who
speaking
knows?
of
Maybe,
UFOs and
maybe
people
they're
from,
among us. Maybe
yeah,
Josh is an alien himself.
well, I was gonna say, speaking of UFOs, Ryan P. Cruz joins us, of course, to talk about
Okay. That works.
your cover story in the Independent this week, which is quite interesting. It's the builder's remedy issue. Boy, you had some numbers there that just were kind of jaw-dropping. It really surprised me the extent to which people are talk about what the builder's remedy is first, and then the extent of it.
Yeah, so the builder's remedy, basically how I would describe it is, when you put something off for a long time and the consequences kind of come up all of a sudden. We've had this housing problem in the state for decades now. And for a while, the local counties and cities have kind of been checking the boxes on the housing element, which is their plan every 8 years on how to meet our expanding population and how we're going to meet our need for housing and affordable housing. So up until now, everybody had kind of been checking off the boxes and not really checking if those are actually getting built. And in that time, we're getting a huge amount of market rate housing and almost no affordable housing. And that has added up, and the state has just upped the antes this cycle and really put the pressure on the cities and counties they can't just check the boxes. They need to have actual properties that are able to be developed. And because of that extra scrutiny, that pushed, almost every city and county past their deadline. And when anybody who's been kind of paying attention has heard this builder's remedy, and what's the danger of builder's remedy? That basically takes the power and puts it in developers' hands to kind of get a free golden ticket, free pass through the review system with a maximum of 5 review hearings. And the cities can not really adjust design-wise. They're allowed to go bigger. We've seen them go more dense than what's allowed in the city zoning codes before. And that's because these developers are providing the much needed affordable housing that the state says we need.
Well, are they, or is it,
that's where the problem is, because out of these, so now we've seen the city and county miss their deadline. In that window, we're still waiting we've adopted it, but we haven't got that certification from the state. And so we're still kind of vulnerable, but right now there's 18 projects. That's 14 in the county and 4 in the city. And that's a total of 5,000 units. And these are,
wow,
agricultural lands. One of them that's really surprising is the one right behind the Mission. These estates that were built by the Hazard family back in 1885. Another house on the property was built in 1916, and those are slated for demolition. And in that spot will be 2 apartment buildings, one for adding up to 560 units combined. And that's, where 2 houses are now. And it's kind of, we're seeing the breaking point of what's happening with this housing crisis. And we need affordable housing, and the state has decreed we're going to get this housing no matter if the cities and counties like it or not. And this has been a unique kind of way for developers to squeeze in there. And looking into the people that are developing these lands, it's a lot of LLCs. And so you have to kind of do some digging to find out who's behind them. And some of them are familiar faces. Like we've got some people in North County, Jack Bodger, he's been trying to build on that property for a while. In Isla Vista, we have the Proctor family who, is very involved in UCSB. They're trying to build on some of these IV properties. But there's also a few that are kind of, dipping their toes from out of town and from Fullerton, Beverly Hills. The big one that, we talked about a while ago is the
Dr. Liposuction.
Yeah, the lipo diesel and cannabis queen that are building. First they wanted to build a 30-unit housing development on Grand Avenue, Lower Riviera, and that would have been, it's on a property that usually holds 4 units max. And they applied back in May, and that gave them 6 months. So what this does, it's kind of wonky. It's hard to explain. The builder's remedy application, it cements.
Oh, you managed to do it in your piece.
Yeah, it cements their standards, meaning we can build a development at this size, and they put it in. So on Grand Avenue, for example, it was 5 stories, 30 units, and that was bigger than what was allowed at that time. So that gave them a 6-month window to get that formal application in, which once you get your formal application, you have 5 hearings and basically you can build your property. But what we saw them do is not do that formal application. They went ahead and put another application for 45 units and went another story taller. So it really, only 2 of these properties so far have put their formal application. That means those are 2 that are very likely to get done, and that's the Baylor, sorry, out there in Carpinteria, and I'm sorry, the other one is Tatum.
San Marcos Growers.
Yeah, Tatum out there. There's 3 over there by San Marcos Growers. So Tatum has applied for their formal application. The rest of them have this 6-month window to do their full-on formal application or expire. So we saw a few of them in the city expire already. And talking to some developers and reading what's happening across the state, a lot of times some of these developers, you know, they put in these builders remedy projects with these exorbitant numbers, kind of as a bargaining chip to kind of put the planning division on alert. And so then they can kind of adjust it and say, you know, we're not going to build this huge, you know, 12 at Hollister, a family is proposing a 1,200 unit development in an avocado orchard. So what's possible, you know, we don't know the details of this yet, is that they can say, hey, instead of this 1,200 unit, we're going to scale it down, but we still want this ministerial process, which means we still want this review, streamlined review that the city can't really pick apart the project. So we've seen that happen in Santa Monica, which was the biggest builder's remedy.
Well, yeah, and there was a judge, Josh, in Beverly Hills this week who said that the city cannot even give you a permit to remodel your kitchen until they get their housing element together. So, I mean, the push on this is incredible. And it's, you know, I recommend Ryan's piece. Anybody, you know, I say it's easy to forget. I mean, we really are losing local control over design, Josh. And you wrote about the new project that's planned at the Macy's site on State and La Cumbre. Talk about that a little bit, and then I want to discuss the way that they kind of just gave the FU to the height limit.
Yeah, and I just want to piggyback on what Ryan mentioned real quick, and something that, you know, I've been criticized for mentioning is the county. And the county will tell you, well, Josh, everyone else missed the deadline too. Okay. I don't know how that logically makes sense as a defense. Like, it doesn't, just because everyone else did.
Both sidesism.
What is it called?
Both sidesism. Yeah. That's what they, yeah.
The bottom line is that, you know, we're in this situation because the county took too long to do what they're highly paid to do. And I know I can't say in my industry, like, you know, well, no one else is doing that, so, you know, I couldn't do it. Like, and that's going to be acceptable. They opened the door to builder's remedy by not doing their housing element on time, early, on time. And yes, other municipalities did it too, but that should not be an excuse. And I do have a question for Ryan, though. The builder's remedy, what level of affordable housing do they have to build? Is it 20%?
It's 20%. And, you know, so we're seeing out of all of these 5,000 units, that's about 870 that are going to be affordable. And, you know, like both you and me, Josh, we've been writing about what does this affordable mean? And we've seen a lot of times they're kind of coming in with that affordable quote unquote, but what it's going to end up being is people that, you know, make $80,000, $100,000 a year, which those are people that need places to live. Don't get me wrong. That is the workforce in Santa Barbara, but there is a huge need for low income, truly affordable housing.
And that, I mean, that's supposed to be the idea. That's supposed to be the whole priority.
Yeah, that's the catalyst behind this, that these developers are providing that, but we're not going to see that. And we're going to see over this next 8 years when these properties get developed and all these other, with the housing element, with these 24,000 units in the whole county, we're supposed to see how much of those are going to be affordable and what's that going to look like to the demographics of the whole city.
Well, the Macy's thing, Josh, isn't it even less than 10%?
Well, that's what's like puzzling to me is builder's remedy is supposed to be this way to say, sorry, you're going to get these huge developments, but they're willing to build 20% affordable housing. But with the La Cumbre Plaza Macy's project, the Taylor family, and great father and son team, nice guys, all that, less than or 5% is going to be affordable out of 572, 64, something like that, 56 affordable units. That is like laughable. And I don't understand how they can come in with a straight face and say all these talking points about housing and say we're only going to do the 56. And I thought the builder's remedy thing was like, well, that means, yeah, build higher, build more, but build more affordable housing. So it doesn't make sense to me. But essentially, massive redevelopment of La Cumbre Plaza, about 6 acres of the Macy's building side and all of those parking lots around it, which are, some of them are mostly vacant. And so they're coming in with this 76.
Well, what about the Christmas tree lot, though? You forgot about.
Yeah, that's gone. It's not
And
going to
the
be there.
pumpkins and the
Big
pumpkins.
Wave Dave's on a wave out of town for sure. So they're going to do this big thing where it's going to be up to 76 units and
76 feet.
76 feet, 562 units. And this is a significant deal because the neighborhood, the community is all worked up about traffic, congestion, infrastructure. It's Eric Friedman's district. Separate from that, the Riviera Dairy owners want to build another big housing project on the Sears side, which is going to be for 500 units. And levels of affordability is not the nuance that anyone's talking about. Instead, they're saying, we're going to get all this new housing. That's going to increase the housing stock. That's going to lower the rent costs because there's more demand. And those people who are in those old housing will move into these. And then that'll open up that affordability. And it's all of these machinations that are just sort of hypothetical. And it's just frustrating because none of it sort of makes sense as to what the elected officials are talking about. They should not let the Taylors, as well-intended as they are, build that many units and not have more of it be significantly affordable. I mean,
Yeah,
10%. Go ahead.
it's basically just trickle down housing, and that's how they want it to work. That, you know, the private developers are going to build, you know, a couple affordable units, 10%, 20. And like Josh said, that's going to magically get the other landlords because the demand's better. When we've seen, you know, if I buy an apartment building in Santa Barbara right now and I see they're charging $2,000 and I take it over and I get new people in there, we've seen it happen over and over again. They're not going to rent it at $2,000. They're not going to rent it below. They're going to put it at market rate, what everybody else is renting a 1-bedroom, a 2-bedroom at. So it's, when we see it on the ground, it's gonna be a crazy couple of years. We're gonna see.
It's the law of unintended consequences, or maybe it is intended. I don't know, but gee, you know, it just seems like, oh, housing, but the main thrust of what's supposed to be happening ain't happening.
Exactly.
And the other thing, Josh, how did they, I mean, this, you and I were on the show with the mayor, with Randy Rouse, you know, ranting about the 60-foot height limit, and the city was going to go to court to enforce that. And that sort of quietly went away.
Well, I think it's an open question. I think these developers are asking for like a waiver. And I think if some community group wants to challenge this, then it's going to require a vote of the people to amend the city charter. I don't think that whatever is happening in Sacramento with your favorite housing guy you always mention, Jerry, I don't think his bills can supersede the city charter. If the city charter says we need a vote of the people to go above 60 feet, I think that's something attorneys have to hammer out. I don't know if that came up at the meeting, Ryan. I did not attend the Wednesday night meeting, but I asked the Taylors about that in my story, and you know, they said they were under the impression that it didn't.
So that's the thing about housing law right now, and with the state density bonus and SB 330 and builder's remedy, a lot of this is untested, kind of theoretical, and reading of these laws that were written maybe decades ago, maybe amended over the years, and how these kind of work with each other. It is tough to figure out, because we had a couple places. I think La Cañada was one of the places that tried to buck the builder's remedy and try to say our city charter says we don't allow these, but we saw the state kind of rule that the need for housing is greater than, you know, the city charter in that situation. So it's really hard to tell how this is going to work out.
All right, let's talk a little politics. I think that, the most interesting race at the moment is the third district supervisor's race, Janine. And as you know, that historically has kind of been the, where the balance of power on the Board of Supervisors lies. For years now, it's had Isla Vista in the district, which has been a big liberal Democratic stronghold. It's out of it. Joan Hartman is running for reelection, but it's a tougher district for her because there's more North County and Santa Ynez in it. What's your sense of where that race stands, Janine?
It'll be interesting to watch because Lompoc, the entire city of Lompoc now is in the third district. So, and like you said, there's much less from the South Coast. And you have Lompoc's mayor running against Joan, so that gives a new twist to that race. So I think it's probably going to head to a runoff, and
Is
I don't see
Janelle
how
Osborne
they can avoid it with.
Yeah, Janelle Osborne's the mayor of Lombard. Is she popular?
Yes.
I mean, if she is, yeah. So that she'll have a little political base
Yeah.
at least.
She has a little political base, and there's one theory too that those that want her away from Lompoc will vote for her to go to the county just to get her. I've heard that theory too. So who knows? I mean, it'll be an interesting race to watch, especially because of the new redistricting, and we haven't seen this makeup before. I think, yeah, mainly the big difference is the entire city of Lompoc now is in the third district. It used to be in the fourth district. So
swapping Lompoc for IV is probably not great for Joan. Josh, we talked to Joan Hartman and also Frank Troyce, and I can't figure out what he's doing. Is he I mean, is he running as a goof? Or, I mean, is he really going to put any, I mean, he's obviously got a lot of money. He could put into it himself, but he keeps saying, oh, it's going to be over on March 5th. And, if they'll just adopt my revenue plan, I'll drop out. And what's your take on him?
I don't know, but I woke up too many times at 2 a.m. like nightmare, trying to figure out exactly what he was saying, what his strategy was, because it made no sense. He originally said that the race can be over by March 5th if Janelle Osborne and the people behind Joan Hartman endorse his revenue plan. And then he'll drop out because he cares more about the policies than the personal.
But his revenue plan is based in large part
It's
on,
like a
on the
four-column
Exxon
infographic.
Mobil pipeline, correct?
Yeah, it's on more oil. It's on creating like space tourism and these other things, but they don't make sense. They're like, there's words there, but it doesn't make sense how he's going to do that. And so, that's never going to happen. No one's going to like endorse his revenue platform. So then I think he's planning to hopefully make it through the primary and then launch a heavy hitting, highly paid, expensive campaign to go all out and try to win the seat, I guess. But he's not saying that. What he's telling me is it's all about March 5th right now, and then he did give me this quote that says, they don't know how much money I'm going to spend. So it's very weird. I think it's an unfortunate oversimplification by him of what it takes to win an election. And we see this over and over and over. These really, smart, and I do the quote marks because not that I don't think he's smart, but being financially minded is one version of smart. It's not the most important necessarily version, but he has those smarts. And so he thinks he can just like go to the county and fix everything that
It's the old run. Let's
highly paid people are working on every day. And it doesn't make any sense. So if you want to win, you got to spend a whole bunch of money and you got to have workers. He told me in my interview to my face, nobody reads mail, nobody looks at a sign, and nobody wants to get a call from a candidate. And I'm like, you're so wrong. Like, that is so wrong. This is local government. Like, that's exactly who we vote for. The people who make contact with us and who have Democrat next to our name, or if you're Republican, R next to their name. And So yeah, I don't know what he's doing, but I'm kind of bothered. I feel like he thinks he's kind of puppeting us and toying with us, and it's
Yeah,
frustrating.
it seems like he wants to win an election and run the area without ever having to deal with any people. And like you said, it not making phone calls or not. I think you asked a good question in your podcast. That was, how are you going to represent, a area that is very diverse or something like that. And if you're not coming and trying to meet people on the ground, and I think that's really important, especially in the local politics. We don't see our local politicians, or hopefully most of them, as on the ivory tower. We want to be able to speak with them and see if they
Well,
represent
except
our
for
community.
one.
Yeah, that's what I said for the most part.
Janene, is he a well-known person up in North County and in the Valley? I mean, has he been someone who's been active in local affairs, or all people say, "Oh yeah, Frank Troyes, I know him," or is he more of a tourist?
I'd never heard of him until this
That's a
came out.
bad sign.
And so I'm also always fascinated by these people from business that think they're going to come in and change government when they're only 20% of the vote. He's only going to be one of 5 people. So whatever ideas he has are, he only has 1/5 of the say. So good luck with that. I
Yeah.
haven't seen him speak at any meetings. So yeah, I'm not sure where he came from or how long this has been simmering, but it seems like a unique approach that probably won't.
Yeah. Well, yeah,
Well,
run government like a business. Government is not a business. That's the only problem with
exactly.
that argument. That's otherwise it's really brilliant. All right, we got to close, but before we go, Ryan, there's a city election.
There is a city
this year
election.
too, and you had a piece about who's up and who's down, and what do we have to look forward
So
to?
the city election in March, we're going to see, the main thing is going to be this ballot measure, and that's going to be mostly about city contracting. And there's a story up if you want to read about that. It's kind of wonky, but the city wants to adjust its public works contracting to make it so it's not just to the cheapest bidder. So make it so we can get some more quality bids. So there's 2 sides to this. Some people are saying that changing that is going to help us get projects done quicker, more quality projects. Some people are saying that it's going to make the local workers and local contractors just get bid out of every project. So that's going to be on the March primary. And coming in November, there's 3 council members that are going to be running for re-election. And the one to watch out for is the East Side District 1. Alejandra is going to have 2 challengers. One of them, Jet
Alejandra
Black
Gutierrez.
Merritt's, has been kind of an advocate for homelessness in the East Side for a while. And the other one, Wendy Santa Maria, has been really active in housing. She was organizer for CAUSE, Santa Barbara Tenants Union, and now works for UC, organizing with the unions over there. And so that's going to be a really interesting race, especially with, what's going on with tenant protections and rent control. And that's going to be kind of a big thing where Alejandra has kind of, made herself stand out with what she's said about that, and kind of put herself in front of the landlords and the mom and pop landlords where, some of these challengers in her district are really pushing for the need for housing and to protect tenants and renters. So that's going to be the most interesting one.
Yeah,
The other ones,
but just to know, there's no runoff
Yeah.
in that. She just has to finish first.
yeah, she just has to finish first. And so Mike Jordan will also be running. He has another challenger who's a very dark horse candidate. But Mike and Oscar, who are both running for re-election, are pretty solid. I think they've done a good job of, reaching out. Oscar Gutierrez is everywhere. I think if you've been to any opening to a ribbon cutting, any sort of community event where they're trying to, Oscar is always there. You can see him with his
Anti-Frank
dog.
Troyes.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think Oscar will have no problem. Mike is very well known in his district. I think the interesting one will be Alejandra and whether she will be able to hold her seat, which she's had strong for, I think, 5 years now, or whether one of these challengers will come up and do something.
All right. And then Josh, we also are going to have school district races, but I defy anybody to figure out the districts in that one because that's really a complicated.
Yeah, and at the risk of having Councilmember Gutierrez get mad at me, and I
Which
don't want
one?
Alejandra Gutierrez, and I don't think anybody wants to be you know, in the eye of her fire. But I'll just say it, she's in trouble. Like, she's gonna have to figure out a way to do it, because I don't think the Dem party is gonna endorse her. And Wendy Santa Maria is like a tenant advocate, and Alejandra Gutierrez basically stood with the property owners and the landlords at the vote. And that she'll get some money from that. But again, this is the District 1 East Side, and it's going to matter more who can talk to voters. So I'm not saying she should not get reelected. Jet Black Mertz has also got a base, and she's got a very well-known political consultant, so she's going to run a good campaign. And so I'm just saying that that is going to be the most exciting contest in November, more than the Board of Supervisors. That contest, you know, assuming Alejandra is even going to run again, because there's a lot of people who've been unhappy with her, who supported her, and that's just the truth. That's not like opinion. And I don't think the Dem party is going to endorse her. And she won by 8 votes. And I guarantee you, she won because of the Dem party.
Now, where's Jason Dominguez when you need him? All right, we got to get out of here. Janene Scully and Ryan P. Cruz and Josh Molina, thank you so much. Thanks everyone for watching, and we will see you next time on Newsmakers.